We're continuing the Sikha from Nitzavim Aleph, the Sikha in Chelik Tes, where the Rebbe discusses the pasuk V'shov avay lekecha shvuscha. Rashi says, what's the title of V'shov avay lekecha shvuscha? That the Eibishter is together with Yidden Golus, and Rabbi Seinu lomdu mikan shashchine shruya im Yisrael b'tzaras galusam. The Eibishter is with Yidden and Golus. And when Yidden are redeemed, the Eibishter wrote into the Torah a Gula for himself. So just a Chazara Kitzer of what we learned, the Rebbe explained that the fact that the Eibishter is with Yidden and Golus includes a few points. Number one, the Eibishter is with Yidden to help them, to save them, not to just let them go according to nature. Yid is l'maylam and ateva. It's the first point. But that's not the chiddush of this pasuk. Then there's a second point, that the Eibishter is with Yidden like a father that's there with a child and doesn't ever leave the child and is standing by his side and cares for him. It's the second point. And the third point that Rebbe says, and that's the chiddush of what we learn in our pasuk, that it's not only that the Eibishter, because he sees the pain we have, so it pains him that we have to go through this kind of suffering. But Kaviyachol, the Eibishter, is there with us, experiencing the same suffering. And that's the chiddush when it says that that Hashem is in Golus and the very same Golus as a Yid, and by the Geula, it's a Geula of the Shechina as well. Okay, now here, see Vavim further, the Rebbe is going to discuss the second shot from Rashi. What's the second shot of Rashi in this pasuk? Rashi said, the day that Hashem gathers all Yidden from Galus is a very great day. Very interesting lashon. Rashi says it comes with difficulty. Hashem is to grab every individual Yid and take him out of his place in Galus. And Rashi brings the pasuk in Yeshaya v'atem to look to le'echad echad bnei Yisrael. And then Rashi adds va'av b'gali yisharu mismetzinakein. Even when there were other nations that were exiled, we find similar that the Eibishter redeems them. Shenem v'shafti eshvus b'nei Yamai. Okay, so why is Rashi adding another pshat? Why is Rashi comparing the Geula of Yidden to a Geula that there is by Goyim that are in a Golus? What's the kavanah of this? So Rebbe explains here. Let's see. Sivov. After everything we explained there, what we learned from the pasuk is not move on. There's still a question that Rashi is coming to address, why he brings a second shot. Hey, Nemes, as mitzadem, was Shechina Shruyim Yisrael b'tzaz Galusam. Yeah, it's true that the Eibishter, the Shechina, is with Yidden in Galus, and the Rebbe emphasizes Galusam. The Eibishter is not stam in a Galus. The Eibishter is with Yidden in their Galus, whatever the Yidden suffering is. So now it comes out that this is also relevant in how the Geula happens. That it's not that Hashem is out of the Galus and he redeems us, but he's being redeemed along with us. As the Eibishter wird sich zurückkehren von Tzaras Galus, Hashem is returning from the Galus with Yidden. Sorry. That's an outcome of this. But the question is, that Chiddush Inyan is doch aber be'ikeshach zum Galus. What's the main point here, though? The main point here is that the Eibishter is together with the Yid in his Galus. Whenever his pain and suffering is, the Eibishter is experiencing the Galus with him, expressing the love of the Eibishter, expressing how much Eibishter cares and how close he is to every Yid. That's the main point there. The outcome, that therefore, when you get to the Geula, the Eibishter is going to be redeemed along with Yidden, that's not the main Chiddush here. Ein Favaz sagt es the pasuk by den Geula, B'shav goyim v'shvuscha. So why does the pasuk hint this point about the fact that the Eibishter is in Golus together with Yidden when it's only describing the Geula, which is the outcome of the main point there? That's what's bothering Rashi with the first pshat. As far as Rashi mamshech, so therefore Rashi brings the second pshat. Oid yesh leima. Not so. It's not a usual lashon for Rashi. But oid yesh leima. As we can say a second pshat here. As mit der Aussprach, v'shav havaya lekecha, meint the pasuk zu sagen noch an Inyan. By the fact that the pasuk brings this Inyan, daf given again to the Geula, the pasuk is coming and saying an additional point. So in the heart of the Rebbe clarifies what Rashi means with this expression. The derech klal, what's Rashi's lashon? Dover acher, or sometimes yesh emrim. here Rashi says va'oidya shloima, because what Rashi is saying is the main kavan of the pasuk is like the first pshat that we should understand from this how closely the Eibishter is with Yidden and Golus, but Saras Galusam. Because the Torah chooses to write this point when it speaks about how the Gola will happen, we could also learn from this a second point that Rashi will say here, how exactly the Eibishter will redeem every individual Yid. But both points are true in the pshat of the pasuk. So the second point is was negeya binyan agula to kibbutz golius, which is relevant in how Hashem will gather all Yidden. Bald as the kibbutz von alle Yidden, von alle Erte von Golus. The gathering of all Yidden of all different locations of Golus is a schwere Sach. It's difficult. Kaviyachol for the Eibishter. The Rebbe steht da b'shov havaya lekecha. So therefore it says that the Eibishter returns Yidden, saying that the Eibishter has to go to every individual location there where they are in Golus to bring them. If they something that comes easy, and the Eibishter could stay in his place and send a shliach or send someone else to take Yidden out of Golus, so then it wouldn't say V'shav. It would say the Heishiv, because then the Eibishter remains in his palace. He remains in his place, removed from the Golus, and he's sending a malach, a shliach, whoever it is, to redeem Yidden. Because the Eibishter has to go himself, so he's going down to the place where Yidden are in Golus. That's what it says V'shav. That the Eibishter has to go and come out, to schlep every Yid out. Again? And a chanami, true, according to what it says in the first shot. And it's true, but what the second shot is saying is that the fact that the Eibishter is there and returns from Golos is not only mitzvah the fact that the Eibishter loves us and he's always with us in the matzav of Golos, but the Gula itself, in order for the Gula to be able to happen, also demands it. It's impossible. A Yid is in Golos. It means, look, it means both geographically, the fact that Yidden are scattered around the entire world, every Yid in this place, but it means also more the fact that each Yid in his particular individual Golos is orangutan. He's very, very sunk into his matzav of Golos that he may not be interested or be ready to be elevated, to be taken out of Golos. And the Eibishter himself, Kaviyachol, has to take every individual Yid out of his Golos. They don't even know they're Yidden. Also possible. The assimilation, correct? Yeah. Don't even know B'chlal who they are. Weil Ba'azah, Greis und schwere Sach is kantig as das tut der Eibishter allein. The Pasuk is saying this because this is something that only the Eibishter himself could accomplish. Similar to what it says by Mitzrayim, but there's for a different reason. By Mitzrayim it says, Ani Yoshev Chanti, only the Eibishter himself could bring Makas B'chayres and see who's a Yid and who's not. Only the Ani V'lei Malach. So over here himself, to take every individual Yid out of his Golus, wherever in the world he is, it demands that the Eibishter himself should come personally and take every individual Yid out of Golus. That's the remez of V'shav, why it says the Eibishter himself is returning. Okay, but now there's another thing to explain it. Rashi doesn't stop there. Rashi says, Godul Yom Kibbutz Golias, and Rashi brings a comparison that you find similar by Goyim as well. Does that mean that the Kibbutz Golias of Yidden and Goyim Atake, it's the same thing? Can't be. So how do we understand the Rashi here? So here the child learning this has the following question. Kibbutz Golias is a schwere Sach. If any time you have to gather people, a nation, from any exile is something which is very difficult, it's not something which is uniquely related to the nature of Yidden being a Golus. B'chlal, any nation, any people that are exiled from their land and are in a Golus, it's a difficult thing to gather them again. Sorry, I skipped a line. Is doch das nicht verbunden mit Kibbutz Golias für Yidden darf? If that's the case, this has nothing to do individually with Yidden, that the Yidden have to have a special koyach of the Eibishter himself to come and redeem them. On the contrary, there's actually room to say that it's more difficult to gather Goyim that have been expelled of their country and are scattered around in some different country in the world than to gather Yidden to bring them back to Eretz Yisrael. Why is that? Only by Yidden do you find the fact that Yidden are like one person, like one entity. So no matter where a Yid is in the world, there's that special achdus that there is amongst Yidden, or mitzad neshama of a Yid, or whatever this is referring to. The K'ish Echad is something which exists only by Yidden. So there's something that always keeps us together as one, is the kibbutz from Yidden geringer with the kibbutz from Goyim, lahavdol. So then to gather Yidden, wherever they are in the world, should be easier. than lahavdil coming and gathering goyim from their gullus to bring them back to their country. There's nothing there's no glue that sticks them together. They're each an individual, and once they are expelled from their country and they scatter around wherever it is, so then that's it. They lose their nationality, they lose their identity, they become a citizen in a new country. Now you want to bring them back to their old country. It's something which they don't even feel they belong to anymore necessarily. By a Yid, though, the moment you ma'ated him, he knows that he belongs, he knows that he's Keshach, he's a Yid. So it should actually be easier to redeem a Yid. A Yid, whoever a Yid, he remains a Yid. Hein Favasa, the Pasuk Madgish, as the Vishav is Valavai is Elekecha. So then why is the Pasuk here saying Vishav? And the term Vishav means that Hashem went to get every Yid, and he has to return. And this Vishav is only regarding Yid. Havai Elekecha. This idea should exist anytime. Any people are in a Golus. Far is Rashi Mayrechum Mefaret. That's why Rashi has to explain this, and he has to bring more details here. Bringt them beim treffenden Pasuk. And Rashi has to bring the specific Pasuk of Yeshaya to explain what's unique regarding Yidden, which you don't find Benegeya to other nations if they were exiled and Hashem brought them back to their original country. And Rashi says, Gadol, Yom Kibbutz Golius, the day of gathering Yidden from Golius is very great. Ubekoishi, with difficulty. Ki iluhu atzmai tzarech liyas oiches biyadav mamish. Hashem, as if he literally holds on to every Yid. Ish mimekaymai ke'in yishanema va'atem tuluktu le'echad echad b'nei Yisrael. So here, Rashi is proving this point that in the Pasuk in Yeshaya you see that the Eibishter gathers and grabs every individual Yid. The Pasuk clearly says it's only regarding Bnei Yisrael. By Bnei Yisrael is da oich der inyan from ish mimekaymai. The Eibishter goes to every individual Yid and takes him from his place. Then Rashi continues and says, we also find by the Golus of other nations similar to this. Shenemar, and here he brings the pasuk V'shafti es shvuz b'nei Amoin, that the Eibishter himself, V'shafti means the Eibishter says, I have to return the b'nei Amoin that were exiled. Vonim says Gadol chulu. It's something that's very great and very difficult. Darv zayin hu atzmoi. Only the Eibishter himself could do this. But here though the Rebbe says V'sulai. But Rashi stops right over there. Nit to look to le'echad echad. There's still a difference between the kibbutz galius of Goyim and lahavdel, the kibbutz galius of Yidden. When it comes to the kibbutz galius of Goyim, you need the Eibishter himself to come and be makabetz them. There's no other way, because it's kosher, it's kavayochel, it's kosher, and it's godel. It's a great matter. But nevertheless, this inyan that to look to le'echad echad, the fact that the Eibishter goes to every individual Yid and takes him out of Golos, that's an additional point that the Pasuk Yeshai says only benegay to Yidden. Right, so that's why, on one hand, Rashi has to bring you the fact that there's a comparison the way it is by Yidden to the way it is by Goyim. Because otherwise you're going to be wondering if the reason the Eibishter has to do this is because this is something which comes with difficulty, because Yidden are scattered all over the world, shouldn't that apply to Goyim as well? If Rashi is not going to clarify that, you're going to be left with that question. Why is this unique for you? So Rashi Taka brings you, and a Chanami. To some extent, you see this inyan by Goyim as well. That by Goyim, the Eibishter himself has to take them out of their Golos. Nobody can come and take people that are scattered all over the world and bring them back to become a nation again, back into their old country. But on the other hand, Rashi shows you from the Pasuk in Yeshaya that there's a contrast here. That by Yidden, it's even more. By Yidden, it's not only the Eibishter himself, but there's a certain expression of love where the Eibishter grabs every individual Yid and says, do this mine, come with me. There's more to this. It's not just the Eibishter himself, but the Eibishter actually takes every individual Yid with love and takes them out of Golos. That's something which is not necessary. That's a certain special Hashgacha Pratis, which you find dafke by Yidden. That's the kavanah of Rashi over here. Okay, not time for this week. And the Rebbe will continue. We'll see. The Rebbe will explain. There's Hashgacha Pratis. Once you get into the point of Hashgacha Pratis, so they're left with the question. There's Hashgacha Pratis and everything in the world, even on Daimim Tzemei Chai as well. So what's far the chiddush over here of to look to le'echad echad when you get every individual Yid? As we'll see, Mitzvah Shem the Hezber. How many? There's an example of Bnei Amoin, right? That Bnei Amoin were exiled and they were returned back to their country. Which other case this is? It was maval to them in the whole world, right? Yeah. The mark of that Indian. Which